Just when everyone thought they knew everything about Burrell, the famous celebrity chef known for her bold cooking and lively personality, a heartbreaking truth came to light. At 54 years old, the woman who brought joy and energy to countless fans around the world passed away, and her death left behind a deep silence. That silence was finally broken by the one person who knew her better than anyone, her husband. What he revealed about her final days was emotional, painful, and completely unexpected. The truth turned out to be far more complicated than anyone had imagined. And Burrell wasn't just a chef. She was a bright and powerful presence in the world of cooking, with her spiky blonde hair, fiery personality, and no-nonsense attitude in the kitchen. Millions of people admired her not just for her skills but for the way she made cooking feel fun, fearless, and full of life. However, while she made everything look joyful and exciting on TV and social media, not many people knew what was happening in her personal life. Now, her sudden passing at 54 has left fans stunned, and the culinary world heartbroken. In the weeks leading up to her death, everything appeared normal, and was still posting cheerful food pictures on her social media accounts. She teased fans with news of upcoming projects, giving no hint that anything was wrong. But now, when people look back, they see the signs. There were moments when her usual upbeat tone sounded quieter. She cancelled a couple of cooking events in early spring, saying it was for personal reasons. Some people who worked with her noticed she looked more tired than usual. One friend who had recently worked with her said and smiled, but her eyes didn't shine like they used to. Despite these quiet warnings, no one suspected that something serious was going on behind closed doors, and was dealing with something that she had chosen to keep private. She was fighting a serious health condition, and she didn't want the world to know. Her reasons were personal. She didn't want people to feel sorry for her. She wanted to be remembered as a passionate and powerful chef, not as someone who was sick or struggling. Even her fans, who watched her closely and followed her every update, didn't see how bad things had become. When she started posting less, people just assumed she was taking a well-deserved break. Some believed she was enjoying time off with her husband, Stuart Claxton, after several busy years of work and public life. But the reality was much more heartbreaking, and was quietly preparing for what she knew was coming. She wrote letters to her husband, to her close friends, and even to her fans. These letters were sealed, and some of them have not been made public yet. Slowly, more and more details have started to come out, and it's becoming clearer just how much pain she had been hiding. One of the biggest shocks came when Stuart, her husband, finally spoke out. When Anne's death was first announced, social media was flooded with grief, confusion, and countless questions. But one question was repeated again and again: why hadn't her husband said anything? 4 days and then weeks, there was complete silence from Stuart. There was no message, no social media post, no public statement, not even a thank you to the thousands of fans mourning her. This silence led to online theories. Some thought Stuart was too heartbroken to talk. Others began to wonder if there was something being hidden. Some people even began to suspect that something was wrong in their marriage. Finally, Stuart gave a private interview to a family friend, which was later verified by People magazine. In this emotional and deeply personal statement, he revealed that Anne had made a final request before she died. She had asked him not to say anything publicly about her death, not right away. She told him she didn't want her passing to become a trending topic or a media frenzy. She didn't want the spotlight on her during such a private and painful time. She asked for silence until the world was ready to understand the truth. Stuart explained that he honored that request, even though it meant he had to stay quiet while reading countless online comments accusing him of hiding something. He said he spent many sleepless nights reading those hurtful messages. Some people thought their marriage had ended before her death, but Stuart said that wasn't true at all. He said their final weeks together were filled with love, quiet moments, and deep connection. And even cooked him one final dinner, her favorite lasagna. That night, she told him not to remember her in a hospital bed but to remember her in the kitchen, laughing and creating. Those words were among the last things she said to him. And silence wasn't about hiding or avoiding the truth. It was about dignity. It was about controlling her own story, even in death. Stuart said he didn't speak to defend himself. He spoke to Honor and Anne to tell the world what kind of person she really was. But Stuart's statement also revealed something that even Anne's closest friends didn't know. Behind her public smile, Anne had been suffering from an autoimmune disease for over 2 years. The details haven't been released, but those close to her say it caused severe pain, inflammation, fatigue, and physical weakness. She had flare-ups that affected her energy and movement. But Anne never let anyone see her struggle. On camera, she smiled through the pain. During filming, she would quietly lean on the counter when needed. She would record scenes in short bursts so she could rest in between. Her producers and husband knew how hard she worked to keep up the appearance of strength. One producer who worked on Worst Cooks in America said that Anne would sometimes limp between takes. They had to shorten filming days because of her condition. But the moment the cameras rolled, Anne lit up the screen like nothing was wrong. That's who she was. She didn't want sympathy. She just wanted to be respected. And was worried that if she told people about her illness, they would treat her differently. She had worked hard to build her reputation in a male-dominated industry. She didn't want anyone to think she was weak. Sadly, her condition worsened earlier this year. Stuart shared that she had been hospitalized twice in the last 6 months of her life. The first time was because of a sudden and dangerous flare-up. The second time was just weeks before she died. But even then, Anne asked her husband not to tell anyone, not even their family, until she was back home. She told him, "This is a pothole, not the end of the road." But in truth, her body was failing. Her spirit remained strong, but her health was slipping away quickly. In her final weeks, Anne made the brave decision to stop all aggressive treatments. She wanted to be at home, where she felt most comfortable. Surrounded by her husband, her 2 cats, and the smells of home-cooked food, Anne said goodbye quietly and peacefully. Stuart held her hand as she took her last breath. He said she died just like she lived, on her own terms, strong, stubborn, and filled with love. Even more shocking is that, just 10 days before she died, Anne posted a happy photo from her kitchen. No one had any idea it would be her last post. Publicly, she was still smiling. Privately, she was getting ready to say goodbye. But her story didn't end there. After her death, Stuart was going through her belongings, trying to deal with his grief. While looking through her things, he discovered something that brought both tears and a smile to his face. Among her handwritten letters and old recipe notes, he found a small package she had left for him, marked to be opened after I'm gone. Inside was a notebook filled with recipes, memories, and personal messages. And had created a private cookbook for him, a final gift to remind him of her love, their life together, and all the meals they had shared. In that notebook, she wrote about their favorite dinners, inside jokes, and even included doodles and notes in the margins. There was one recipe labeled Stuart's favorite night, which was her lasagna. She wrote, "Make this when you miss me. It will taste like home." This last gift helped Stuart cope with the pain of losing her. It showed him that even in her final days, Anne was thinking about love, food, and making others feel cared for. As word of her condition and final days spread, fans and fellow chefs started to see her in a new light. She was already respected for her talent and personality, but now they realized just how brave she had been. Anne Burrell fought a silent battle and still chose to give joy, to teach, and to share her passion for cooking. She didn't want her illness to be the story. She wanted her legacy to be about strength, love, and flavor. Her husband, Stuart, continues to share pieces of her legacy through social media. He posts recipes from her private cookbook and tells stories of their life together. He said that while losing her has left a hole in his heart, he finds comfort in cooking her dishes and remembering the love they shared. Anne may be gone, but her spirit lives on in every kitchen she touched, in every meal her fans cook in her honor, and in the hearts of those who admired her courage and kindness. Anne Burrell's story is one of strength, love, and quiet resilience. She taught the world how to cook with boldness, but in her final days, she taught us something even more powerful: how to face pain with dignity, how to protect your joy, and how to love fully until the very end. He couldn't sleep. The house felt too quiet, too empty. Every time he walked into the kitchen, he expected to hear her humming. He would glance at her favorite apron still hanging by the door. But even though he had prepared himself for this emptiness, Nothing could have prepared him for what he found next. Deep inside the back drawer of Anne's writing desk, hidden behind old notepads and pens, was a stack of handwritten letters. Each letter was sealed, dated, and addressed to different people in her life, her friends, her family, other chefs, and even her fans. One envelope was simply labeled "To the ones who watched me cook." Inside that envelope was a message from Anne to her supporters, a message that would soon be shared with the world with permission from her estate. And the words she wrote inside shook everyone to the core. Anne began the letter with warmth and honesty. "If you're reading this, it means I'm no longer around to yell more salt at the television," she wrote. "But don't be sad, please don't. I lived my dream. I stood in kitchens across the world. I met people who became family. And I got to share what I loved with millions of you." She continued, "I know I was loud. I know I was a little crazy. But I hope I made you braver, not just in food but in life. If you ever made a dish and thought and would be proud, I am. I always will be." Her words were raw, loving, and filled with gratitude. The letter was a gift, not just to fans, but to anyone who had ever felt inspired by her energy, her passion, or her joy for cooking. And had also written personal letters to her closest friends, including fellow chefs like Alex Guanaschelli and Jeffrey Zakarian. Many of them later shared their heartbreak and appreciation in emotional posts on social media after her passing. But perhaps the most touching letter of them all was the one she left for Stuart, her husband. According to a close family friend who read parts of it aloud during a private ceremony, the letter was full of bittersweet humor, fierce love, and deep honesty. In her message to Stuart, Anne thanked him for his patience, especially when the kitchen looked like a tornado had hit it. She thanked him for believing in her when she wanted to try gluten-free pasta, even though it tasted awful. She thanked him for loving her completely, even on the days when she felt like a storm. "You were my home," she wrote. "You gave me peace when I had none. If you ever miss me, just cook something messy and delicious. I'll be there, yelling at you to stop overcooking the onions." Finding those letters helped Stuart finally break his silence. He said that reading Anne's final messages made him realize that she had not only accepted her fate, she had prepared for it. She didn't face death with fear, she faced it with fierce love. Her goodbye wasn't full of sorrow, it was full of gratitude. It was a farewell wrapped in celebration. But that wasn't all Anne left behind. She also saved a USB drive containing a collection of recipes that had never been published. Her estate is now working to turn those recipes into a cookbook titled Anne's Last Kitchen. All the money raised from the book will go toward culinary scholarships for underprivileged students. Even after her death, Anne was still thinking about how she could help others, especially those who dreamed of cooking but couldn't afford the training. However, just when everyone thought this was the end of the story, just when it seemed like Anne's life had ended in quiet dignity, another voice came forward, shaking the world with a different version of events. It happened only 48 hours after Stuart's statement was made public. A former producer from the Food Network, someone who had worked closely with and behind the scenes, broke their silence in a long, emotional post on social media. The post went viral almost instantly. In it, the unnamed producer claimed that Anne's death wasn't as simple or peaceful as it had been presented to the public. "I worked with Anne for years," the producer wrote. "She was brilliant. But she was under pressure, real pressure. The kind that breaks people down slowly, quietly. The official story doesn't even begin to tell the truth." The post didn't directly accuse anyone of wrongdoing, but it heavily suggested that Anne had faced serious stress behind the scenes. There were rumors of production demands, difficult contracts, and rising tension around her declining health. According to the producer, many people in executive positions at the network knew Anne wasn't well, but no one ever talked about it publicly. Fans who were already grieving began to demand answers. Was Anne forced to work while she was sick? Did she hide her illness to protect her career? Or worse, was she pressured into staying silent because the truth might hurt her brand? Tabloid newspapers jumped on the story, publishing headlines like "Was Anne Burrell pressured into silence about her health?" and "TV star worked to death," ex-producer claims. But not everyone believed those claims. Another co-star, who chose to stay anonymous, spoke out during a podcast appearance. "Look," they said, "we all had tough schedules. But Anne was the one person who never stayed silent. If something didn't feel right, she said it. She made her own choices. If she didn't talk about her illness, it's because she didn't want to. So, what was the truth? The answer, as it often is in complicated situations, was somewhere in the middle. Several people have since confirmed that Anne had grown increasingly frustrated with the pressure of keeping up a certain public image. She wasn't forced to hide her condition, but there was a strong sense among network executives that if the public knew she was seriously ill, it might hurt her brand. And Anne, who had always protected her image carefully, likely felt that pressure deeply. Stewart even admitted to this in his public statement. And didn't want pity, he said. She didn't want people to watch her shows and feel sorry for her. She wanted them to feel inspired by her food, not her pain. That's why she kept it private. That was her power. But yes, she felt the pressure. We both did. So while it may not have been a cover-up in the traditional sense, there was still an emotional weight behind it all. And Burrell was fighting two battles at once. One was with her body, and the other was with the expectations placed on her by an industry that doesn't always leave space for vulnerability. That emotional struggle hit home for many fans and celebrities. It opened up conversations about how television and entertainment companies treat their stars, especially those battling health issues behind closed doors. Anne's passing sparked a movement. Fans began pushing for more transparency in entertainment contracts. People started demanding that production companies create better support systems for stars who are sick or struggling. It wasn't just about Anne anymore, it became a bigger issue, one that showed how silence in this industry often comes at a high cost. But even in the middle of all this controversy, the core of Anne's story remained the same. She was someone who gave everything she had to her work, to her fans, and to her loved ones. Her life was about much more than cooking shows. It was about bravery, kindness, and choosing to bring joy to others even while quietly carrying pain. In his final interview, Stuart Claxton opened up completely for the first and last time. He made it clear that he didn't want fame. He wasn't doing it to defend himself or argue with the critics. He just wanted people to understand who Anne really was. People saw a wild chef on TV, he said softly. But I saw a woman who danced barefoot in the kitchen. She cried during Pixar movies. She made grilled cheese sandwiches at 2 a.m. because life was too short not to. Those words echoed across the world. News outlets quoted him. Fans cried. Social media was filled with posts honoring Anne not just for her cooking, but for the real person she was underneath all the fame. And that's what Stewart wanted people to remember. Anne wasn't just a chef. She was a connector. She mentored people. She helped others believe in themselves. She made failure feel okay. She encouraged people to try again, no matter how badly they messed up. Now, Stewart is turning his heartbreak into something Anne would have been proud of. He's launching a foundation in her name, the Anne Burrell Culinary Courage Fund. The foundation will support underprivileged and chronically ill culinary students, helping them chase their dreams no matter what challenges they face. And used to say, if you can stand the heat, get in the kitchen. And if you can't, I'll stand next to you. That quote captures her spirit perfectly. She wasn't just tough, she was compassionate. Her recipes will be remembered. Her famous catchphrases will be repeated in kitchens for years to come. But her biggest legacy will be the confidence she gave to others. Every time a new cook tries a dish and thinks, I can do this, that's Anne living on. That's her magic continuing to inspire. As we reflect on everything Anne left behind, the letters, the recipes, the laughter, and the courage, it becomes clear that her story is far more than the tragedy of losing someone too soon. It's the story of a woman who used every moment of her life to lift others up. She lived fully, loudly, and without apology. She cooked with fire, loved with heart, and left behind a world that will never forget her. So now, we turn to you, her fans, her followers, and the people who grew up watching her dominate the kitchen. Did you ever try a recipe because of Anne? Do you remember the first time she made you laugh on screen? Or maybe you simply admired her strength and honesty. Whatever your story is, it's part of her legacy too. If you feel touched by Anne's story, share it. Tell someone who needs to hear about a woman who never gave up, who turned cooking into courage, and who believed that every mistake was just another step toward greatness. Because Burrell's story deserves more than silence, it deserves to be told again and again, just like she would have wanted.